I want to bring in now former Arkansas governor and Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. Great to see you today, Governor. One of the things that I would just add into the mix here, because I watched that live with the president earlier, and, you know, he did say that if he sees something that's going south in terms of how people are social distancing in certain areas, that he's going to snap back with a response. And we've seen him do that before.
And I think that's exactly what we ought to be doing. We took a draconian action as a nation. Frankly, everybody did in the whole world, because we really weren't sure just how fast this virus would begin to move. Now we have a much better picture of it. We've seen that mitigation works. I think the president is right. Open the economy back up. Let governors make the decisions, and local mayors and county officials. And then if there does spring up another problem, address the problem. But don't shut everybody, 30 million people, out of work, because we know what that's doing to us, and it's destroying not just the economy, it's destroying the spirit and the will and the resilience of Americans, and that's our greatest asset.
You know who agrees with you is former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, and he had these very raw words to say about reopening. Watch.
And I think that's what we need from governors now, is some boldness and some ingenuity and honesty to the people. In the end, you're going to have to tell them people are going to die, and it's going to be awfully sad. What are those lives going to be worth if people can't go to work, if they can't support their families, if they're going to become homeless, if they have to go to food banks every week to be able to feed their families? That's not sustainable either.
Governor Huckabee, are other governors going to be willing to do that, to sacrifice lives along the way?
I don't think it's a matter of sacrificing lives. A lot of us have done what we've done, not because we were scared for ourselves, but we didn't want to subject other people to the anxieties, or potentially if we were carrying the virus. I think now we're at a point where we're able to say to people, if you're nervous and just fearful that you're one of those people vulnerable, stay home, stay out of the workforce. But the rest of us are going to get back to living. We can't stay hunkered down in bunkers for the rest of our lives. And so if we go out knowing there's perhaps a risk. But I'll tell you, there's no risk in continuing to shut the economy down. We know what happens when that takes place. We all start to suffer. We see that, and I think a lot of Americans are saying a few of us may get sick, but we're all hurting right now because none of us have been able to go out for the last 8 weeks.
Yeah. I want to move on to this. The president taking some heat and some questions, if you will, about why he will not let Dr. Fauci testify before the House first. Senate's going to go. Watch.
The House is a setup. The House is a bunch of Trump haters. They put every Trump hater on the committee, the same old stuff. They frankly want our situation to be unsuccessful, which means death, And our situation is going to be very successful.
Wow, those are some pretty strong words against the opposing party, Governor.
Well, it's some pretty strong nonsense that the opposing party has thrown at the president, from the phony impeachment nonsense to the fact that every day they blame him for something else regarding the coronavirus, when in fact he has responded so well that he has Democrat governors who don't even like him saying nice things about him and appreciating the fact that he has been responsive to them. The reason that Dr. Fauci shouldn't go and testify to Congress is because the conversations and discussions that he has had with the president are in the executive branch, where they should remain. If you take conversations, candid conversations that a president can have with the people surrounding him, and you start having politically charged, hateful people like exist in the Democrat House, just trying to expose it and cause trouble in the midst of a pandemic, presidents will never surround themselves with people like Dr. Fauci again. That's the danger that we would face, not that we won't know what Dr. Fauci thinks. I think it's pretty clear, Harris, this is not a guy who is a shrinking violet. He goes and says what he thinks right in the presence of the president. But the president's not going to trot these people off to Congress so that they can get skewered by the likes of Adam Schiff.
Interesting. Ari Fleischer on with me last hour on Outnumbered said, perhaps you let the Senate go first and then the House comes second so everybody gets a bite. I said, you know, there are Democrats in the Senate. They can ask questions too. Why do you have to be in the majority to ask the questions? Can't you just participate? But that's just my take. By the way, May 12th, the Senate hearing will see Dr. Fauci and CDC Director Redfield in front of the Senate. So we will talk at that time. Good to see you, Governor Huckabee, always. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris.